Wonderful Barcelona, city of life. Here I am on the little balcony at the top of Casa Batlló. Happy chappy. Transport is pretty good in Barcelona despite the cars, and here's a seriously green tram. Good stuff. Ironically, Gaudi was killed after being hit by a tram in 1926. But then the first motor vehicle fatality in the Western Hemisphere was from an electric taxi, and that struck Henry H. Bliss on the streets of New York on the 13th of September 1899. He just stepped off a streetcar. Bikes and pedestrians have some priority in Barcelona streets, and that is even more the case now since I was there. I'm not responsible for it. Street life in Barcelona is vibrant and can be pretty laid back. Gaudi was the outstanding figure among many other architects and designers who shared the ideas of modernisme. It's modernism with an E on the end. I'm not absolutely sure how to pronounce it. This funky building is just part of the astonishing city within a city that is the Hospital de la Santa Cruz y São Paulo, designed by Louis Dominique Montaigne and built in the early years of the 20th century. It's astonishing. I hadn't known of it until I visited Barcelona, and it was almost worth the trip just for that. This is only a taste of the place. It really deserves a slideshow all of its own, and it's straight down the Rue de Gaudi, I think it's called, that connects to Sagrada Familia. Here's Casa Batlló in its street context. As you can see, even its neighbour is quite a fine and seriously not too boring building. Gaudi was given the task of changing an existing building into something that was, well, Gaudi. And this stands for me as the quintessential example of how to take a fundamentally boring rectilinear box and turn it into something gorgeous. There's the balcony. That's the one I was standing on earlier. And here's a detail of one of my favourite windows anywhere. This is looking up the stairway from the ground floor. It's sensuous, sweeping, stupendous. And here's that gorgeous window from inside. There were a lot of visitors, so getting a reasonably clear shot here took a little patience, as I recall. Gorgeous, brilliant. Nature was always, and you can see it here, nature was always Gaudi's inspiration and guide. And you can see that in everything from the structure of his buildings to the smallest detail. It had incredible integrity and consistency all the way through. Here's a detail of the window frame, which has operable vents in it for subtle control of airflow. This was back when going with the flow of natural forces was just what you did, and before fossil-fueled aircon completely distorted architectural minds and led to the bizarre conviction that having huge fixed panels of glazing was somehow attractive. The roofscape. A roof is not just a roof in a Gaudi building. Much more than just a cap on the building is part of the building, and at the same time a place all itself. And here you see helmeted chimneys in the back, in the foreground, I beg your pardon, and the spine of a dragon in the background there. It's based on living creatures and ideas of life drawn from nature. And yeah, I just realized in a remarkable way, this is, just remember, well over 100 years ago. Well over 100 years ago. And here we are inside the attic space where catenary arches support the roof terrace above. And here, seen from a little tour around Barcelona on a tour bus, I got to get this right, Finca Güell, 1884 to 87, one of Gaudi's first jobs from Mr. Güell. This more spoiler, I did not get to Güell Park. La Pedrera, the quarry. Built for the Mila family, one of the most remarkable of Gaudi's remarkable buildings, and much better in the flesh than even the photos show. I was stunned seeing the real thing. And when I was a young architecture student and reading about Gaudi in the school library and so forth, all the images of this building and his early work, they were covered in pollution. It had lost all of the sparkle and freshness that is clearly there now. They cleaned these things. It's been worth it, absolutely worth it. They've been restored back to their original stunning condition. This sculptural sentinel is one of the stairwell exits onto the roof of La Pereira. To get natural light deep into the building, it's pierced by two great light wells. One is circular in plan. This is the back wall of the building, but of course it's not a simple straight line following the property boundary. I don't know that Gaudi would even be able to think that way. And the second larger light well is elliptical in plan. Here's more of the roof and one of the stairwell exits, which are sculptures in themselves, but totally integral with the building. There is an exhibition in the attic space describing Gaudi's principles and showing models and plans. Here you can see how the shallow floor plans and light wells can maximize natural light in a dense urban setting. You just use the building form to get the light where you want it to, in the same way you use the building form to get the ventilation and airflow and so forth that you need. No machinery. The machine as such is the building itself, just working with natural flows. Gaudi constructed his catenary arches by modelling them with hanging chains, sometimes called parabolic arches. There's a very visible difference, but these are strictly catenary arches, which he then turned upside down to achieve an excellent structural form. In the background you can make out the arches of the attic roof itself. And beneath the hanging chains in this exhibition is a mirror where it's easy to see just how those curves are turned into structure, which form the main elements of the Sagrada Familia. Such direct, simple technology and no computers. And here's a very nice example of a fractal branching in nature, one part of the exhibition. And so this is all about how things grow in a fractal way, following nature's inherent patterning, where each small piece of structure contains the essential elements of the larger whole structure. Commercial break. Talking about fractals, I've been exploring their relevance to urban planning for some years and aimed to produce this book, this pocketbook, handbook, early in 2020. Email me for updates at writer@ecopolis.com.au. Keep in touch. Watch out for the Kickstarter campaign. It'll be about 190 pages, 52 micro chapters, many illustrations and drawings, and you'll be able to fit it in your pocket. It's going to be a physical book with backup material online. When it's available, please rush out and buy it, and even before then, make a commitment, and then I'll be able to complete this and get it published. Thank you. These balcony balustrades probably wouldn't be code compliant in Australia, but they're totally, steampunk. This is 120 years old? Outrageous. This apartment building was for a wealthy client, and it's still an apartment building, and it's situated on one of Barcelona's most prestigious boulevards. Yet Gaudi used broken glass on the roof for decoration. There's something, I don't think there's ever going to be another Antoni Gaudi. What a pity, we could do with a few. And it's very broken glass. Here of the arches of the attic, and a really fabulous little model showing the building. And this model shows clearly how the catenary arches march around the perimeter of the building, creating an organic, animal-like structure that nature is already familiar with. Nature uses these sorts of forms. These kind of things happen naturally out of growing to suit their conditions. And that's the thing. Gaudi came up with these amazing shapes and forms, but they weren't arbitrary. They were developed from natural process. Properly speaking, from scientific first principles, and all done without computers. Sagrada Familia is astonishing, and like most of Gaudi's work, has carved inscriptions and sculptural elements telling stories that are integral to its whole conception. And is that Rover? No sign of Patrick McGowan though. Somehow this fitted in really well with the whole Gaudi aesthetic. Well, that was great. Wonderful. Spiritual spires. More examples, of which there were countless examples in this one building of things like this. More examples of Gaudi's ubiquitous and incredibly effective use of tiles, broken tiles often, and mosaic. Most unpromising materials to use, and most incredibly effective results. Construction has speeded up in recent years, and the old and new bits are quite easily distinguishable at present, but weathering will eventually knit the whole together. It'll be really totally complete in about the end of the century, I guess. If it's not underwater, I think it's high enough up. Anyway, this is the east end, one of the bits that have been there the longest so far, and one of the earliest pieces to get built. I end up being speechless, it's ridiculous. And it's intricately carved with naturalistic and religious motifs and images, and it's something like from a fevered dream. It's astonishing. I mean, it's astonishing to have this vision in the first place, and then to realize it. to bring people along with that vision and get it to happen. I have huge admiration for that achievement. Gaudi dedicated the last 43 years of his life to this building, living and working on site. It's often hard to find words to adequately describe it. One of the most complete works of its kind on the planet. And of course it took a lot of people to do this, who all had to believe in it. The result is phenomenal. Beautiful. And really impossible to capture fully in a photograph. And it's huge. The scale of Sagrada Familia, you need to experience it to experience it. It is huge. The effect created by the use of coloured glass in the windows is stunning. It's gorgeous. And it colours the stones. I climbed one of the towers, which was an experience in itself. And here, I'm looking down through the slats of stone into the square where the bubbles were being blown. And finally, this is looking out across the city from one of those towers to the north. So long, Barcelona. I'd love to come back someday.